and welcome back to Sarah's Joyful Journey. I'm Sarah Joy. I'm super excited to have a couple of moments to sit down and just share some victories with you, share what's been happening with Ghost and some future plans and just how life is going for me. I haven't done one of these in a little bit, but I used to do them pretty regularly. So I would like to try to get back into doing like a weekly update thing. We'll see how life goes. I know now that I'm off work until the middle of July, I have a little bit more free time in spurts because of Ghost. But anyway, one of my biggest victories is I was doing the triple B&E. And then when we went to get Ghost, I just stuck with keto. Well, I have not gone back to triple B&E, which is fine. But one thing that did stick is I have not had any heavy whipping cream in 3 weeks. This is a huge victory for me, and I'm super excited about it. I'm glad that I don't have to have it in my coffee. I also may have found a substitute for coffee. I've discovered that I like hot beverages in the morning, so tea is always an option. And I go in spurts where I want a bunch of tea, and then there's times where I don't want any. I did have a little bit of coffee this morning, which was the first time in a couple mornings that I've had tea or coffee. I did have some cold coffee yesterday. But what has been really working for me has been the chocolate flavors of Element. So this morning I had chocolate, and then the past few mornings I've had chocolate caramel. And I do have some of their chocolate medley coming, which should have the chocolate mint, the chocolate chai, and the chocolate raspberry. So I'm super excited to try those, and I'm enjoying those. I just put them in with hot water, and it's the only thing I have. This morning I did put a little bit of prime protein powder and butter in one to make more of like a hot chocolate type meal because I wasn't super hungry this morning, but I wanted a little something. So that is what I kind of had for breakfast, and it worked out pretty good. So no heavy cream. Hopefully in another month or two, I can officially say that I no longer want it. I even cooked a recipe this week that called for heavy whipping cream in the scrambled eggs, and I just left it out. Now, I have had some dairy, minimal dairy, but I've had some. It's been a little tough to not eat dairy, so I'm gonna have to work really hard to get dairy out of my diet, with the exception of butter. Butter is one thing I already know that doesn't affect me. And hopefully keto chow doesn't affect me either, because I would like to keep that in my diet a few times a week, just for simple enjoyment and pleasure of eating ice cream. It's something I enjoy, and if I can do it as a creamy and have it be healthy, then it is totally worth it to me. So I'm gonna be working on that soon. But having Ghost, who is now 8 weeks old, he turned 8 weeks yesterday, and tomorrow on Monday, we will have had him for a full week. So he was just over 7 weeks old when we got him. Has been wonderful. We've been working on lots of things. I forgot how much babies and puppies are alike, and I'm 45, so babies are not always easy when you're 45 and you like your sleep. And I definitely like my sleep, but he's doing very well. The first night he was up a bunch, but I knew that because we had spent 12 hours in the car and he didn't get to play. So the first night he was home, every time he got up in the middle of the night, which was 3 times, he was allowed to play, which meant that night 2, he woke up a lot more. He woke up 5 times on night 2. But we didn't play. What we've been doing instead is I will let him out to go potty, so that he always learns that if he needs to go potty, he can do that. However, when it got time when he was done going potty, we would sit in front of the crate door and I'd make him lay down, and then I'd just be calm and pet him calmly, and then get him back into the crate. So that's kind of our routine now. At night, when it's time for him to start settling down, we go ahead and we turn all the lights off and sit in front of the crate door, and he knows that, hey, it's bedtime. So he's been getting up an average of 1 time a night, because he gets up usually anywhere between 11:30 and 1 a.m. depending on how tired he was and what time we went to bed. We go to bed anywhere between 8 and 9 o'clock, usually right around 8:30. Some days it's a little earlier, some days it's a little later. I think last night we went to bed closer to 9:30 and he slept till 1 a.m. He also then gets up at about 4:30 or 5. I wish he would sleep closer to 5, but 5 o'clock is our normal wake up time. So I'm okay with 4:30. 4:30 may end up being our normal wake up time because I'm gonna have to build time into my schedule when I go back to work for him to get play, get breakfast, possibly go on a little walk. We're gonna see, he can't go outside yet because he is not fully vaccinated. If I had a yard, we could totally do that. But I don't have a yard. We live in an apartment complex and we have lots of dogs, and I don't know what the vaccination status is of those dogs. They are required to live here to be vaccinated, but that doesn't mean the vaccines are kept up on. So he has a artificial grass pad and he's been using that. We've had a few accidents, but he's doing really, really well. And we are working on things like sit, coming when called, not necessarily saying come, but I call him. I don't want to do it because I'm going to wake him up now, but I just go puppy, 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 and I'm really excited, and I usually move back and he comes right to me. So the principles are being taught. We're working on learning to handle our ears and our feet, and now settling down in the crate. So it's all things that not necessarily are named, but we're still working on those behaviors and starting the path to having, making responsible choices. We don't do a whole lot of correction because I think there needs to be more positive. That doesn't mean that we won't use some correction. Like if he tries to go somewhere, I usually go, ah, 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 ah. Again, that's not the voice I use because I don't want him to hear it because he's literally about 4 feet away from me. So we're doing very, very well with that. He's a sweet, sweet little guy. I know if you follow me on Instagram, which I will link down below in the description. So if you want to follow me there, you can follow me. There's been lots of pictures and some videos of him and Piper learning to play together. This morning, they kind of had a cuddle session. They laid right next to each other for about a minute. That was about as far as we got, but that's awesome. They have had several play sessions, but Piper's still not 100% comfortable with him, which is fine. I don't expect her to be. She's a senior dog. She will be 6 on the 28th. So yeah, she's an old lady and he's a baby. So that is going well. With having Ghost and the fact that I am standing up, sitting down, on the floor, off the floor, I have decided that for January, one thing and moving forward, is that I need to work on like my mobility as far as my joint mobility, making sure that my hip flexors are good so that I can get off the floor easier. Granted, I can do it better than I did before I lost 80 pounds, but I still struggle. So I need to work on that and continue moving forward and continuing to lose some weight. With that said, I am in a very stressful period of life right now. Things feel like they are completely out of my control. And for the past 2 or 3 days, I have been struggling with the desire to eat junk food. Last night, I wanted French fries and pizza and nachos so badly. And I knew it was just stress. And I wanted to that was my pattern, was to eat comfort food when I was stressed. So what I did instead was we went to Publix. I got some chicken wings because those are a comfort food for me to a degree. I don't crave them the way that I did like the pizza and all that kind of stuff, but they still represent like that comfort type of food without being a trigger food. So I got that, and then I got some pimento cheese and pork rinds because I'm like, well, at least that's similar to like a chip and dip, and it'll kind of satisfy that crunchy dip that I was wanting without derailing myself. So I'm very proud that I have not given into that, but it is so tough. I also have been wanting sugar, and again, I know it's stress because I don't really have the desire to eat sugar. Like, it doesn't sound good. So I'm not eating anything super sweet right now, but the desire to do it based on the stress is there. So why am I stressed? My mom has been in a situation with my grandmother. They own a house together, and things did not go well. So to keep a long story short and not to give all the details, they are in a bitter battle, is a good way to say it, over their house. My mother is currently not living in the house. She's staying with a friend, but she still has to pay half the mortgage on the house. So she has very limited choices. It is not going well with her friend, and she needs somewhere else to go. My mother lives just on Social Security, so she doesn't get a whole lot of income a month, which is a challenge, especially since she spends basically half her income on her mortgage. Doesn't leave much room for her to be able to rent a place or survive without having somewhere to go and having some support and assistance. We knew that this was coming, but we kept expressing that we were not ready for it to happen so quickly, and we were asking for patience and time for us to get ready so that we could feel secure. Well, that's not happening. So I feel like life has just ripped the rug right out from under my feet. We have to move in the summer. Our lease is up in July, but we have to give 60 days notice. So by the middle of May, we have to give our notice. That gives Matt and I, the rest of December. Excuse me, my glass of water. That gives us the rest of December, January, February, March, and April to get ready to either buy a house, which we don't know if we can even do right now because the amount of income that we make, we would potentially qualify for a house up to $300,000. We live in Central Florida. We happen to live in Claremont, which Claremont is probably one of the most expensive areas in Central Florida as far as buying a home goes. The apartment rents that we pay here is about the same in most places. We could probably find some for less, but on average, it's about what we're paying. So we're not paying a huge amount extra in rent. But trying to find a house that's still close to work, that's still in a nice neighborhood, that still has features that we like, around $300,000 is going to be a significant challenge. One thing we're looking at doing, because it seems like it's going to be our only option if we want to buy, is to buy a mobile home. We had a mobile home in North Carolina. It was on our own property. Ideally, that's what we'd like to do again, just because we don't necessarily want to deal with an HOA, but we may have no choice. We may have to buy a mobile home in a park, which will be, you have the park rules, which is basically an HOA. So it's possible. So we're gonna try to buy over rent. When I looked at trying to find something to rent within our budget, which my mom's budget is basically non-existent. So we have to add another person onto what we're already paying, and our budget doesn't change. So right now we pay about $1,900 for our rent. We can probably flex up to $2,000 a month, maybe 21, but 21 would be a stretch. And that's if my mom can contribute at least $100 a month, which would still leave her some money to survive. She is planning on getting a job. She does currently have a car. However, her car is old, very, very old, and very high mileage. I think it's like a 2006 or 2007, maybe an 8. It's pretty old. And I think it's got over 200,000 miles on it. It's in pretty good condition, but it is not something that she can drive from where she's at, completely on the West Coast, all the way to the East Coast, the Southern East Coast at that, because she's at the Northern West Coast. So when she gets here, she's going to have sold her car, which means that we have one car for 4 people. She is planning to get a job, which is helpful. She is going to look at trying to get a job at Disney if something will open up, which would be convenient if we have 4 people in one car. I'm trying to laugh because of the stress, and I'm trying to accept it, but I am freaking out inside right now because it is so much pressure that I was not ready for. I saw us being able to move next summer. I wanted another year to really work on it. I don't have money saved for another security deposit. I was hoping to pay off my credit cards, which are not super, we don't owe a lot on our credit cards, but we wanted to pay them off and get them to a 0 balances. I might be able to get the money on the credit cards, but I won't really have a security deposit. My mom said she could sell her car and that could cover a security deposit, which is nice, but that's still a lot of pressure and that's still a big ask. And there's been times where things have been planned one way and they go another way. This is common, this happens to everybody. But I don't like being put in that position where I don't feel I have control. And for me, it's not actually a control issue. I don't want to control everything about the situation, but I want to know that I'm secure and safe along the way. And I feel like I have some choice. When I feel there is no control, I feel that I have no choice. So I don't think control is the right word. I just like to feel like I have choices. I like to move at my speed. I do not do well with change at all, especially big change. Thinking about moving again, and we just moved forward, it'll be 5 years in August, is traumatic for me. I moved a lot as a kid. The last move, while it has worked out to be a blessing, was not an easy move to make at all. We lost our house. We moved out of state, which that part was in our choice. We were going to move across town, and the opportunity to work at Disney opened up. So we did decide at that point to move to Florida. So that was nice. It wasn't like we had absolutely zero choice in it, but it was hard because we downgraded our life massively. And our expenses actually got more expensive because it's more expensive to live here in Florida. And before we moved, I didn't have to work. And that was nice, but I was in school. So I was in school and I volunteered, and that worked well for us. Would I like to be in a position where I didn't have to work again? Yes. Or I could run my own business and work on my schedule and my terms. That would be fantastic. But I don't see that happening anytime soon. So realizing that I have to move in a few months, not knowing where I'm gonna go, how I'm gonna afford to do it, and we're adding an extra person onto our household without necessarily increasing our budget is extremely stressful. The other thing is I have the 2 dogs now, and my mom has a dog. We're gonna have a really hard time finding a place to rent that will allow us to have 3 dogs. So it puts us in the awkward position of, what are we gonna find? How are we gonna compromise this? And I really always kind of feel like it's gonna be me that compromises, and I am not compromising this time when it comes to my dogs. Piper's, like I said, she's an old girl. I've had her since she was 8 weeks old. She is not going anywhere, and I just got Ghost. And I think he has the amazing potential to be the service dog that I need, or at the very least that active buddy, which I also need. So he's not going anywhere. But it's also not fair to ask my mom to get rid of her dog. So if you're in the Central Florida area and you know a place that will allow us to rent for about $2,000 a month that has ideally 3 bedrooms, 3 baths, which that probably won't happen either, it would let us know because we'd really like to do that. Piper's a big dog. and Ghost will not be super big. And my mom's dog is 5 pounds. So it's not unreasonable, I think, to have 3 dogs. But I know with all the HOAs and the HOA rules and stuff like that, it's going to be harder to find a place to rent or buy. Buying will give us a little bit more freedom unless we end up in a mobile home park, because then we'll have less freedom. We literally don't know what is going on, what's going to happen, where we're going to go. And this is the most uncomfortable, stressful feeling for me, because I feel like I have no choices. I feel like I am not ready because I haven't really planned. But yet I can't necessarily plan ahead, because planning does make me feel more comfortable. Again, it's kind of that control. It gives me the feeling of control, like I have choices. It's like, okay, if this were the ideal situation, I would have told my mom, okay, like we were discussing, hey, we will gladly move next summer. We need 1 more year. And that's what we were stressing. We're like, we need 1 more year. We want to make sure that we can get things under, paid off. We want to be able to save money, whether that be a down payment or a deposit, because moving is expensive. And we want time to be able to explore other areas if we need to move. And we went from having agreed on having a 1.5 years-ish to now we have like 6 months. So it's a lot, and I'm not okay. It's a lot of pressure. I'm gonna deal with a lot of stress over the next few months. And then you throw raising a puppy in there too, and lack of sleep. I get very tired. And then this morning, Matt and I had an issue where our AC wasn't working, and then now it's working, and I don't know what's going on, but we left the windows open because it was raining, and we're like, okay, we would like some fresh air. Well, apparently in the middle of the night, the sprinklers went off. We woke up to 2 inches of water in the floor in our solarium. I'm still trying to dry towels because I can't get them to spin out enough. So I'm having to dry all the towels individually, and it's taking over an hour in the dryer. It's not pleasant. But because of that issue, which was a trigger issue, it wasn't really the issue, and all the other stress that we've been feeling with new puppy, and now finding out that we're having to move and we don't know what we're going to do. We were at each other, and we were biting at each other a little bit, just kind of spit spats. So we're trying to move forward and avoid that. So for the next few months, I'm giving myself grace. I'm gonna stick with keto. I'm not gonna get on the scale. I can't get on the scale. I cannot give myself a challenge. I can give myself goals and desires, but a goal to me is a little bit different than a challenge. For me, a goal, yes, it has like an end date, but it doesn't always have an expectation attached to it. Whereas a challenge has an expectation attached to it. So I'm gonna stay keto, and I realize that there's gonna be that desire to stress eat, and I may not lose any weight over the next few months, even though I really need to lose. I have another 70 to 100 pounds to lose, depending on where I want to end up, and I don't know where that is at this point. I have a range, like I said. I know I want to do 70 to 100 pounds more. So we'll see. But for January, one thing I know that I am going to focus on again is working on my mobility and being able to move my joints better. So I know I want to focus on my hips. I'm sure there's other areas that I need to work on as well. So I'm going to do that. The other thing that I'm going to do for January that seems reasonable and doable without a whole lot of stress. And if at any point it becomes too stressful, I will stop and I will just go back to keto. But for now, I am planning on doing carnivore because January is carnivore month. So I was thinking, okay, that's cool. I'm going to pretty much be eating triple B&E, but I'm going to allow myself some chicken. The other thing that I'm going to allow is I'm going to allow a Quip protein powder. Yes, I know it is not technically carnivore because they've got like cocoa powder and flavorings and stuff in there. But for my purposes and my needs, it will allow me to have some other variety. I'm not going to allow keto chow for the month of January, but probably in February, I'm going to start experimenting with how much keto chow can I actually eat without having any inflammation and issues in my joints. Because that's been what I've noticed with the dairy, has been inflammation and joint pain. So hopefully by doing no dairy except butter into January and just eating that super, super low carb, carnivore-ish diet, hopefully that will give me time so that when I go into February and I start adding keto chow in, I will be able to realize pretty quickly when inflammation is happening. Of course, I am under stress, so that may not work either. I may have inflammation just from stress. I know in the past week, I've been using my CGM and I've noticed my blood sugars have continually going up. But I also know that this is getting up in the middle of the night. It's the stress talking and stuff like that. During the day, my numbers are perfect, right where they should be, but they are a little higher than I'd like in the morning, but nothing too serious. So that is how life is going for me. It's a lot to handle, and throwing onto the situation that I am not working until the middle of July with no paycheck, or middle of June, not June, January. We're not working for a month basically till the middle of January with no paycheck does not help the stress either, because now I'm looking at it like, well, if I would have known that we were going to be moving this year, I wouldn't have gotten a puppy. I wouldn't have taken time off. Do I regret those decisions? No, not really. But would I have made different decisions if I would have known that we didn't have time to plan to move? Absolutely, absolutely. Would have made different decisions. And I think that's what it is really affecting me the most is, again, I feel like I have had no choice and no control, and I don't do well with that. I never have. It is connected to my autism and my ADHD. I get to the point too where I go to start planning and I see the whole picture, and it's very, very difficult for me to break down into steps. I can do this sometimes, but it becomes difficult. And then because I look at the whole picture, I can't actually start something because I can't always process on how we go from the big picture to the small picture. Yes, logically, I know how to do it. Doesn't always work that way for me. I was always teased as a kid, especially by my parents, because if we were going, like any time that we knew we were moving, especially as I got to be adult, my parents always made fun of me because my husband was in the military. And as soon as we found out we were moving, I am like way ahead of the game. I've like planned super early. And that is because that planning helps me to better regulate myself and better regulate my emotions and to deal with it. So when I feel like I have no choices, I feel like everything around me is out of control. But the blessing is I'm solid in my keto journey and I can control what I eat. Maybe have some desires, and I'm probably going to overeat and stress eat. But if I can keep it keto, I am successful. And that's kind of how I'm looking at my journey right now, is how to be successful while still being stressed out and still moving forward as best as I can. So we'll see. But one thing I wanted to mention before I wrap up this video, now that I have rambled on for quite some time, is next week, one thing I am going to do that I haven't done for a couple years is I'm going to bake. I love to bake. Baking is stress relief, and I'm super excited about this. I don't know exactly how many cookies I'm gonna bake, but I'm gonna be making some keto chow cookies. I know of at least 2. I've got to see what kind of ingredients I've got, because everything I make, I actually already have to have, because I have no budget to go out and buy anything. But I am going to bake at least 2 kinds of cookies. I'd like to do 3, maybe 4. I'm going to do it while Matt is home to help, and I would like to share the process of me making these cookies and trying these cookies with you guys. So I figured that'd be fun because a lot of us do stuff like that for the holidays, and I want to try out some new fun recipes and just enjoy the baking and enjoy the ability to have a cookie or two. Not going overboard. Most of them will end up in the freezer, which is fine because then I have to think ahead of when I want a cookie to defrost it. And I like that. It allows me to have more control over the situation. If they're in the freezer, or I can't just go and grab a cookie, need a cookie. If they're in the fridge or on the counter, I can easily drive by to eat when I'm stressed out. So we're gonna put some precautions in place, but I'm super excited to try some cookie recipes. If you know of a good keto cookie recipe that you would like to see me make, comment down below and leave a link to that recipe, and I'll see what I can do. If I have the ingredients, I might just throw that in there as well. All right, well, if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more life updates and how I am doing with puppy raising and the fact that I now have to find a new place to live. It will be good at the end, I'm sure, I hope. I'm trying to be positive, but the process may not go smoothly. So we'll see how I do and how I adjust. I have my periods where I'm okay, and then I have my periods where I am just not okay and the stress is getting the better of me. All right, well, you guys have a lovely Sunday evening or afternoon. My puppy is starting to wake up, which means it is about time for him to have lunch and move on with our training session. So you have a wonderful day, and we'll chat again soon. Bye for now.